Cool.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Patrick, for that wonderful intro. We're really excited to be here. Doug, it's always a pleasure presenting with you at various conferences.
Yeah, thanks for that intro, Patrick. And we look forward to sharing a bit about just adapting during the pandemic for everyone, and sharing some of our experience. So we'll go into a bit of a longer intro. Now, my name's Doug Waxman. As Patrick said, I'm the Business Development Director at International TEFL Academy. I got my start in this industry just studying abroad at university. I studied business and marketing at the University of Sydney. Got me really interested in just travel and education. From there, I was able to work in Australia for an international ed startup for study abroad students. Didn't make it very long, maybe a year or two. We were out of business, but it was a fun experience. While I was young, I worked for a Costa Rican high school abroad program back in the States. And then I've been working with TEFL certification and teaching abroad for about 10 years now. So I look forward to sharing some insights with everyone tonight.
Great. And my name is Ian. I am the co-founder and vice president here at International TEFL Academy. As Patrick mentioned, I've been working in the world of international education since 2008. I'm from the great state of Michigan, America's High Five. That's where I'm actually tuning in from right now from my home studio here. My children are presently not here, but if you hear crashing and banging and screaming in the background, it's fine. They'll be all right.
Could happen here too. Very possible.
Yeah,
there might be some loud noises.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a chance to travel and work in Europe, Asia, Latin America, and have made it kind of my life's goal to help people see the world and make the world a little bit smaller place through cross-cultural experiences. So enough about us. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world today, Doug.
All right. Thanks, Ian. So let's get started. So first, you're probably on your phones right now. Give us a like, or follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Really great resources that we spend a lot of time on to share what our teachers are doing before COVID. Now you can see some interesting stories on how people are adapting, who are teaching through us all around the world. And you can message people live. We have a lot of Instagram takeovers, Facebook lives, and people are really open to direct messaging in our network too. So I think it's a great way to connect with people who are around the world teaching and traveling at the moment, even during these crazy times.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so today, we're going to talk about who we are at International TEFL Academy, a bit background about our organization. Some of you might know us. Most of you may know nothing at all, so we'll go over that. We'll talk about how COVID-19 has impacted, our industry and how it relates to just international education in general. Some major challenges that we face, that we're all facing right now. How we've adapted and tried to adapt. Some luck, some hard work, and then some key takeaways before we run into some questions from there.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about who we are here at International TEFL Academy. So we're the world leader in TEFL certification. We train this year just over 6,000 teachers per year to teach English abroad. TEFL, for those of you who are unfamiliar, the acronym stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language. We got our start back in 2010, and actually, as soon as this presentation is over, we are running to our 10th anniversary virtual party that Doug and I will be attending. So we're just really getting our share of a screen time today with each other. So we've got graduates currently teaching in around 80 countries. During the past decade, we've trained over 40,000 English teachers, and we offer highly accredited, internationally recognized TEFL certification. And here are some accolades. As Patrick mentioned earlier, we work with a lot of great organizations, including Patrick's, and we're really excited to be here today. Yeah, so I kind of ran over this. Our demographic of students is a pretty wide range. We have students as young as 17, 18 years old, all the way up to, more mature teachers well into their 80s. And so, it's not, teaching English abroad is not just for somebody who just got out of college and wants to take a quote unquote gap year before they start their 5-year plan or whatever. It really appeals to a lot of people in various stages in life. And Doug and I have been fortunate to work with a lot of amazing students over the years and help facilitate them achieving their goals of working and living around the world. A crazy statistic that we have here is half of our alumni before they taught abroad had never left the country before. And so this is a great way to be able to go abroad with gainful employment and really kind of live life as a local and experience a new culture. So this is a snapshot of our team. There's actually quite a few people missing from this photo. Surprisingly, this was at our film festival that we hosted last year. Sadly, we had to reschedule our film festival this year due to the pandemic. Fantastic event where we had alumni submit their own homemade films from all over the world from their experiences teaching abroad. And I was absolutely floored. I don't know about you, Doug, but the quality of films that our graduates put together. It seems like everybody has like a GoPro and a drone nowadays. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, so we've all worked abroad. We've all traveled abroad extensively. We all, I think collectively as an organization, we've been to around 100 countries. And I really want to stress that, like, even though we are working remotely, our organization is open for business. We didn't have any disruption in service or business. And so we'll get into that a little bit later. But just a little bit, here's, who we are as an organization.
Yeah, and if you happen to want to see some of those Film Fest videos, they're all pretty short. You can go to our website and there's a search button. You can just type in Film Fest or Film Festival and see some student-led videos. It's pretty cool. Give you some travel inspiration. So now we'll kind of get into the real meat of the presentation right now. So how has COVID-19 impacted the industry of international education, specifically our institution? And I think everything that I'm going to talk about relates to every industry, in international ed. So a lot has happened in 2020, so far. Very fluid situation, lots of variables. We're going to take a look at where things are standing now with jobs, teaching abroad, teaching online, in our classes, and just how we're operating. So right now, most schools worldwide, most physical programs are closed. It's been that way for quite a while, and many people have adapted and are moving their programs online or just trying to postpone things and weather the storm. So international travel largely still at a standstill. We've seen a lot of places start to open up, in the last couple weeks. So we'll kind of see how that goes, but it's been a long time, for no travel for a lot of us. We're in the midst of a nice economic crisis. Job market not as good, as it once was. And we'll see what continues with that. And then, we've seen what's interesting. All countries are at different stages of the outbreak. We saw it happen, in China and Asia first with our teachers over there. And it really took months before it really, became like, oh my God, this is happening around the world once it hit the US. So we're all at different stages. We're keeping updated on how it affects, timelines and schools and, programs happening in person again. And then, so what else we know? So, teaching English online has been a big shift for us. It's an industry that's been hiring, TEFL teachers even during the coronavirus. And it's not new. E-learning has been happening with English education for about 5 years now. So we're lucky to have that content and have a lot of people already teaching online through us when this happened. So demand for education, especially English education, is still huge. People were on lockdown. People have time on their hands. People are investing in education for their futures. For us, schools in many parts of Asia have started to reopen. In some cases, like Taiwan, for example, nothing really ever shut down and schools remained open. And we do have some schools around the world that are hiring for in-person training, and some TEFL schools that are open in person. So, really, we're promoting people preparing in advance, because eventually things are going to open up. We don't know when, and we don't want to speculate, but eventually, things will open up for travel and in-person training.
Yeah, that's right, Doug. And as you mentioned, some of our partner locations around the world, the classes have just kind of been closed right now. So it's when you can't have people, when your borders are shut down, it's hard to have people come in and go out. So we have seen a lot of them close their doors. Some schools are tentatively rescheduling to restart this fall. Some of the countries that are a little bit further along in their response and recovery to the pandemic, but a lot of this is fairly uncertain. Some of the schools that have opened their doors, their borders may not necessarily be open as well, and so the only participants that they can have in their class are people who are already in that country. Okay, so it's not really something that's a possibility for students looking to come from the United States or Canada or wherever they happen to be. So what do we anticipate in the coming months? The vast majority of paid opportunities for TEFL certified teachers are going to be in the next 3+ months will be online. That's been pretty consistent since about mid-March. Teaching English online, as Doug mentioned, it's not a new concept. It's been around for a while. We've had a ton of our alumni that have been doing this for years. We actually developed curriculum specifically geared towards teaching English online about 2 years ago because of the demand for those who wanted to teach English online. So that's kind of where all the most paid opportunities are currently right now. Once things kind of return to normal, whatever that may be, there's going to be a surge in demand for in-person teachers. So many educators who are already abroad when this whole pandemic hit, they came home, right? And so a lot of schools lost a lot of their staff. One thing that this pandemic has not changed at all is the demand to learn the English language. It's still the international language of business, education, aviation, medicine, you name it, tourism. People need to learn the English language. And so there will certainly be a deficit of English teachers available once the proverbial smoke clears. And so those who are getting their training done now are preparing to kind of take advantage of that influx. So schools in Asia, as Doug mentioned, are also slowly reopening. We have had several of our graduates in the last, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks, accepting contracts that have started in parts of the world like South Korea and Japan and Taiwan. And even the Ministry of Education program in Spain just recently started accepting applications again. So we're cautiously optimistic that things will kind of get back to normal in the next 6 to 12 months or so. But as far as like Latin American countries and Europe, it's still very uncertain with kind of how everything is going to shake out there, because there's just not a lot of information coming from there. And the pandemic has affected countries differently just across the board. So we're, like I said, we're optimistic, but at the same time, we're very realistic about prospects.
All right. Thanks, Ian. So now we're going to get into some fun stuff, some of our major challenges that we face. I'm sure everyone here has faced, this year. So a big one, we had to close our Chicago headquarters for now. So basically we had a huge office, we made a lot of renovations, a really fun, great place to come in and work and interact with staff, talk travel, learn from each other. So yeah, we had to, close that. That makes things quite a bit different. And then we also had our in-person classroom connected as well. So, we can't run, the standard, training courses, in Chicago as well. Also in-person meetings. So a big shift, as I'm sure everyone, had to kind of, shut down. And, we do have a reopening plan at the moment, but a little bit tough with with Chicago being a big city. Another factor, even though we were well set up for this, we were about 50% remote staff from all over the US. We had to move to 100% remote pretty much immediately, which, we were well set up for from a technology standpoint. But, really, no events, no, real direct interaction, coaching, from managers, parties, like, the social aspect and, what we're used to with work and, interaction with your peers was kind of, that part was, mostly gone, and we had to figure out, how to do it virtual. And so actually I do have a quick, poll if you could type in, had any companies been using Zoom or heard of Zoom before the pandemic? Just curious about that if you want to share, because Zoom is now everywhere, and a household name.
Yeah, my 4-year-old is on it. So, and just to add to that bullet point, while people are filling in their responses, Doug, I think one of the challenges also, even though we were, like as you mentioned, 50% remote staff before this whole thing hit, people, even though we had the technology and the practice of working remotely, people didn't necessarily have the setup at their homes to be working remote, in that environment. And so I'm sure everyone here can kind of commiserate on the fact that all of a sudden you were doing more work at your kitchen table than you are actually like having a meal with your family or whatever it may be. And us being based in Chicago, a lot of our staff, their apartments weren't very large. We're not talking like, oh, I'm just going to use the guest room as my home office. It's like, well, I live in a studio apartment or a 1-bedroom, and I'm here with my partner as well, who's also working from home. So there's definitely challenges like that we've experienced as well.
Yeah. And, we've gotten good at pressing the mute button when there's screaming right. Kids nearby on an important phone call, and, running outside, running all around, the house. So we've all had to make changes. But, luckily, how long have we been using Zoom? In a couple of years before this?
Before that was Skype. So it's been almost our entire existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like we were lucky with that. People started talking about Zoom all of a sudden. I was like, oh, that's what we use for work. And then, the whole world in a week was on, Zoom. So it's pretty crazy. So we were at least well positioned with technology and didn't have to make any, major, changes with that, with, staff working remote, but still a challenge. Another big challenge for us was all of a sudden, 25% of our business, in-person TEFL training. Hundreds and hundreds of students all around the world, all had to close down. So, that was a big change. School closures as well. So, we're unique in that, we're doing the TEFL training. So we have training courses. We're training about 6,000, students a year to become teachers. And then we're helping them with job placement to go abroad and work for these schools. So with everything shutting down, it was just a big shift. We have thousands of people abroad, thousands of people planning, to move abroad and signing contracts and getting, their visas. And really a challenge initially how to, pivot and figure that out, how to work with our alumni who are, in Korea, right now, in Argentina, in Costa Rica, in Spain, and just, really we're able to, work hard and try and help everyone on an individualized basis, which was a lot of, work and manpower and a lot of hours, around, March, April.
Yeah. So there was a lot of adaptation going on during the pandemic, hence the title of our presentation, adapting during the pandemic. So
relevant.
I think the number one thing that we've really kind of been focusing on too here internally at ITA is improving of our remote culture for staff. So even though we did have a head start on the technological component of working remotely, there's still the people component and the emotional component, as I mentioned earlier. So, we're certainly not perfect in terms of like mastering remote culture. It's something you have to constantly be working on, though. We were aware before COVID of the challenges that staff who are working remotely face to stay engaged with their work, to stay connected with their coworkers. And so we've been focusing a lot in the last several months here on improving the remote culture that we have. And there's a lot of different ways we've done that. Some things are very simple. Like, for example, once a week, we have our coffee talks. And so we have somebody on our team that goes through and takes groups of 5 and assigns them, randomly. And then you have to find a time in your schedule where everybody has 30 minutes to just sit down and talk. And it's not about work. It's about whatever it may be, just random conversation about whatever's going on in people's life, people who you normally wouldn't necessarily like work on a project with, or they're not a part of your direct team, kind of just hanging out and doing some water cooler chat. So that's been really fun to be able to do that. We've done our weekly news to print, which is like an internal newsletter that we send out every week just to kind of give everybody a rundown of what's going on this week, has started to have staff highlights of people, like just random questions and quotes and pictures from their childhood and things like that. Fun stuff like who your childhood cartoon crush was and these sorts of things. So it's a fun way to kind of get to know people. We've done Zoom happy hours. We did one socially distanced outing in a park in Chicago that went pretty well. And even as I mentioned earlier, Doug and I have our 10-year anniversary party to go to tonight. We contracted a company that actually curates Zoom parties. So we have somebody that's going to be like doing, I don't even know what's in store. It's going to be crazy, a lot of fun, dress up. We mailed custom engraved glasses and ingredients for a craft cocktail to all of our staff all over the country. So everybody can kind of have a toast drinking the same thing. So you kind of have to get creative in a lot of ways. As managers, it's really important to stay in touch with your team. I can't tell you now more than ever. If you used to, before COVID, used to have like, once a month check-ins, once a week. You got to be checking in minimum. For some people it's daily because they feed on that human interaction. So over communication is really important. People need to be engaged. I just found out today that a nationwide Gallup poll on employee engagement, we haven't seen such low levels of employee engagement since the year 2000. So if you look at like the graph of just like overall employee engagement for the American workforce, it's just nosedived over the last 5 months. So making sure that your team is connected and engaged is really important to adapt to that. I think another moving forward on some of these bullet points, transparency and the new COVID-19 content. That's one of the reasons why ITA has really been thriving during the COVID crisis, is that we leaned into it. We were very transparent with not only our alumni, but also potential future students on kind of where things stand. We weren't making any false promises or, sugarcoating anything. We published a lot of content from our graduates that were abroad dealing with this. So it's not just like, hey, I know we're here, we can't go abroad. What's going on with this person who's stuck in Costa Rica right now, or in Colombia or Thailand or whatever, who's been teaching there for the last year and a half? What's the scenario on the ground for teachers? And so we saw a lot of not only potential future students coming to us, looking to us as a resource, but also our alumni just coming back to us like, thank you for writing that article. Thank you for hosting that webcast or whatever it may be, because everyone is kind of in this ship together. Doug mentioned this earlier. We had a big shift from about 75% of our courses being online and 25% of our courses being in person to now we're fully 100% online. We had a class in Chicago in our flagship location, like our main central office that we offered every month, an intensive TEFL training class. We pivoted immediately and transitioned that to a full-time online class. The director of studies here, she undertook a huge project to take that curriculum and make it digital compatible. And so we, right when everything started closing up, we knew that was something that we wanted to do, not only as a business standpoint to kind of like retain revenue, obviously, because we didn't want to have all of these students like having their courses canceled, but also just as a prospect of people are going to have time now. They're at home. They're, maybe have been laid off or whatever. Some people have the opportunity now to take that 1 month intensive online course as opposed to our standard online course, which is 11 weeks. So quick pivot on that. Major market shift for us, focusing on teaching English online. As I mentioned earlier, it was always there. Teaching online is not new, but now more than ever, it is just a very, very booming industry. People who are maybe laid off or their timeline got pushed back a little bit, they can supplement their income by teaching English online. And then these last two were really important as well. Offering flexible tuition payments for potential students moving forward. We understand that money can be tight right now. With the global economy, people may have lost jobs, or maybe the work that they do have is inconsistent. And so being flexible with making payments on the tuition, as opposed to just requiring the entire tuition be paid in full or whatever it may be, we decided to do some installment plans, and then flexible cancellation policies. We know things are uncertain. We know classes are closing, borders are closing. And so now more than ever, it was really important for us to be able to say to our students, hey, if something happens, this doesn't work out, we're going to be flexible with the cancellation. You're not going to be at a total loss here. So am I missing anything here, Doug?
No, I think that's great overview.
Cool.
Perfect. And I'll take the next one from here. So, now we talked about a little bit about, how we've adapted and, challenges during the pandemic. I'm going to give you a little bit of context now, talking a bit more about our classes and what we do, just to kind of see, how we've, handled things and shifted just with our, main product. So for the last 10 years, the 11-week online TEFL class has been our part-time, 75% of our business, what students are taking to teach abroad. It's really a structured college level certification course that's recognized everywhere. And with that course, the idea originally was take our in-person TEFL class, which is the standard around the world, and offer the same course in a flexible way that still meets the same accreditation standards, quality, and service as the in-person course. And we really found that online learning is more accessible to most. It's part-time. You can work or study while taking it. We can still get master's or PhD professors providing feedback, offering lectures, get the same accreditation. We keep the classes small with 20 students per instructor. And, we make it flexible. So there are set start and end dates. It's not a self-paced class. Students keep up with deadlines. There's optional live components, or you can do everything at your convenience. Really just keeping up with a weekly pace, getting feedback, attending videos, live webinars, office hours. And then really, this shifted to being almost everyone, right away. So we had to, we already had it going, but we did have to shift, and offer a lot more classes with the interest, and just start hiring more, professors, which is pretty crazy for us. And in this course, we've always incorporated a practicum. So that has also shifted from people going to local libraries, community centers, going to people, places, things, over in Portland, to doing more virtual, practice hours. So we had to quickly shift and get tons of resources for online volunteer organizations as well. So, instead of people just going in person around the world. So that's kind of always been our main class. And this was the biggest shift for us. And just talking with our director of studies and professors, did they do this in a month, Ian?
Yeah,
shifted our class.
It was pretty amazing how quickly they were able to turn this around.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So, this was pretty much an in-person teacher training boot camp, 2 master's or PhD level professors teaching 12 students literally all day, Monday through Friday, with a 10-hour student teaching practicum. So it was all designed with in-person interaction and just people building their EFL portfolio. So switching it to online in a month, when this happened, I think we were ahead of the game to be like, let's just do this and make this happen, and we'll always have it. It was not as easy as let's just do it on Zoom and have lectures with 12 students live. all day. It just did not work like that. It was a huge challenge, and we're still adapting. And also, when we launched this course, we pretty much, I think we worked on it in March and April, launched it, and then pretty much sold out for the entire summer of classes months in advance. We booked out, 50 students right away. So the interest was there, and then we had to figure out how to continually improve it. Something we learned, you can't just talk with students. In the first few classes, we realized that the lectures, you couldn't engage students that way. So we did a lot of, and we continue to do this, find ways to lessen the time where the professor is talking to students, give them work to do and tasks to do, at night, and then they'll be ready for interactive discussions, one-on-one, breakout groups, just making it a lot more interactive and, task-based versus listening and lectures. Another major issue was we did the practicum in Chicago. We had hundreds of students sign up for free English lessons, and they would come for 90 minutes. They, would interact. They'd make friends with people from all around the world. It was a very cool social component. And our trainees would teach small classes and observe teachers, in our Chicago office. So doing it virtually, when we did it in person, we had a huge wait list. I mean, we were oversold. We had ESL students contacting us every day. We had a buzz in Chicago. When it shifted to online, we couldn't get people to commit to certain times, and doing it virtually, it was just a lot more difficult. We've had to make the sessions smaller, figure out different time schedules. So it's definitely, more of a challenge than we thought it would be. We were able to pull it off quickly, and it's really, turned into a really quality course. And we've really had to adapt every single day in the class with what's working and what's not. Doing a solely live class in a month.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to that really quickly, Doug, one of the challenges we faced, we couldn't just do an asynchronous class, online, like a lot of school districts are doing right now, because of our accreditation. Our accrediting body, we had to maintain certain standards, certain participation with professor and the students in order to maintain our accreditation. So that was an added complication too, and figuring it out. Like Doug said, we couldn't just say well, let's just do it on Zoom. We'll figure it out later. That wasn't a part of the process. And so for those of you who are tuning in that maybe are working with, universities or have certain academic, standards you have to uphold, that can provide an extra layer of difficulty when pivoting.
Absolutely. And, the last component of really what we do is just personalized job search guidance and student affairs representatives. So we offer really in-depth one-on-one support and career services to connect our students with jobs, and also help them move overseas as well, really through the whole process. So we're set up nicely for that, and that it's not one big program and we offer individualized attention, but we did have to make a huge shift with just working with people from all around the world in different situations, people staying, people wanting to come home, people canceling classes, people, unsure of what's going to happen with travel. So we really had that department, was really on top of it. And now we just have a big shift to tons of resources for online employment, online teaching, as well as just, keeping updated with our partners abroad, and, helping people plan for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road with what's going to happen with different countries. And really providing lots of information and content, and, admitting we don't know what's going to happen, tell people what we do know, and what we don't know, and really lead them to make the best decision possible.
That's right. So here are some, key takeaways that we found, over the last several months here. Make sure you are consistently working on your remote culture. I cannot stress that enough. There are so many fantastic resources out there that you can read, about ways to engage your teams. Some of them are kind of corny. I'm going to admit it, but some of them are really good. There's great organizations and that you can use that really kind of focus on company engagement. We use a third-party company called Amplify. They do a series of engagement surveys with our staff, and then mid-level and upper-level management really focus on ways to improve overall morale and engagement with our team. So like ITA for us, we absolutely are a culture company. We really believe very strongly in maintaining, really good company culture. And so we're willing to put in the work. And that's led to, for us as an organization, having very little turnover over the years because people want to stay and work with us. It's a fun place to work and people care about each other. So being invested in your staff is really, really important, and making sure that you're just staying in contact. It's like, I think people did a really good job about this when things first started. But it's been 6 months now. People have been isolated for a while. Making sure that your team is taking a break, making sure they're getting dressed for work, or taking, take a day off. I know everyone's busy. If you're lucky enough to be busy right now, you don't want to like take time off, but you got to take a mental health day every once in a while. And if you have the opportunity, go outside, get some fresh air, go flex a different part of the muscle in your brain a little bit. Because when people work from home, one of the first downfalls that they experience is they never stop working. They are checking their email and on their phone at night, laying in bed at 1 a.m, and then replying again at 7 a.m. Like, really set boundaries for yourself and for your staff. And if you're the boss and you're sending emails to your team at 2 a.m, stop doing that. Like, respect the hours that they are working, because you're just contributing to the stress that everyone is feeling right now. And I've struggled with that too. It's something where I have to be conscious of that, really kind of respect people's boundaries and abide by certain work hours, and just make sure you're taking good care of your people. Okay. Another takeaway here, online education is here to stay. It just is. We had slowly started seeing some of the larger universities in the last few years kind of drag their feet transitioning to online education, but after this is it. Online education and online remote work. There's companies that have, gone on record, a lot of tech companies out in California, like Twitter, like, look, we're not coming back until after 2021. Like, we're full-time remote. People can do their jobs and do their jobs well. For us, we're slowly reopening our office in Chicago. The governor here in Illinois has laid out a multi-phase approach to reopening, and we're going to reopen our office because people want to be around each other. We have that kind of, and our office is very much like a hub. People like coming in, but we're not requiring it. If somebody doesn't want to come into the office, if they don't feel safe or comfortable, by no means are we going to make them do that. We've accepted the fact that this is the new normal. The next thing here, have a pulse on the industry. This is incredibly important. If you don't know what your competition is doing, or you don't know what your partners or other colleagues in the industry are doing, you're behind. Do an internal and external SWOT analysis. Know what your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats are. There's one thing that I love about international education. It's filled with tons of people with strong entrepreneurial spirits that are constantly innovating, right? They're looking for new ways to operate in this space. And if you've got a great idea and you need somebody to collaborate with, go find that person. Or, the highest form of flattery is imitation, right? So if you see somebody within this industry who does something like, oh my God, that's a great idea, do it, run with it. Because if you rest, you rust. Right. And so you have to really constantly always be thinking ahead, 3 to 5 years ahead. Create contingency plans. And it's hard to predict. Obviously, nobody was predicting a global pandemic that would bring everything to a screeching halt. But having contingencies laid out to know, okay, if we need this to happen, if this partner closes their door, if this stream of revenue stops, what can we execute in the next couple of months that's going to replace that? What ideas that we have that we can get up and running in a short period of time, right? Because a lot of people didn't have those opportunities or those ideas, and then the doors closed because they couldn't pivot. And that's the next one here. Be ready to adapt. change is uncomfortable. So get out there and get out of your comfort zone. We work in international education. We're constantly telling people to get out of your comfort zone. Same should be true about your own company. And then last but not least, always be creating new content. That is hands down the key to success for ITA and our market share within this industry. Not only do we offer really high quality products and services, but we're always putting out new content for people to want to actually read and digest. Like at the very beginning, Doug talked about our social media channels. It's not just fluff. It's not just like, hey, here's our brand, buy our stuff. It's legitimate content that anybody within this space would be interested in reading. And so if you don't have anything to do, write an article, get some information up on your website, get things going, be a resource, be an authority in this industry, and try it out, because the worst that can happen is you wrote an article that, you and your significant other read, and maybe your mom when you sent it to her, but it was good practice. So that's it for our key takeaways. And then bottom line, this is something that we've been stressing to all of our students, potential future students, and our current alumni. We are here to help, and we're open for business. We do not have a lapse in service. We transitioned to working remote full-time immediately. If you called ITA at any point during this pandemic, somebody was answering their call, because we were here and we were ready to work, right? Not a lot of organizations had the ability to do that, and they suffered because of it. So let your people know, let your graduates, your past participants know, let your future participants know that you are here, and you're ready to help them, achieve their goals and facilitate their dreams. Cool. Doug.
All right. Thank you, Ian. Yeah. Thanks for letting us talk at you for a while. Yeah, we'd love to, we have some time, we have about 15 minutes. We'd love to, go over some questions, and then I'll be hanging out in our booth afterwards. We'll share our information as well, but yeah, I'd love to talk and connect about different opportunities with everyone here. But yeah, we'd love to go through some questions.
Fantastic. I don't know if that's something that Patrick can facilitate.
Did you check the
I see on the chat, folks? Yeah, I'll go through some of those now. Looks like cool. We got some people who have heard of Zoom. That's good before this, or have used it a couple times. So I'll take the first few questions here, and keep them coming. So that you can take our courses from anywhere in the world. The 11-week and the 4-week is designed that way. So with our part-time course, there's no live time requirement. There's optional live components, and then we video archive all the lectures, and have you follow a weekly schedule to keep pace, just with grading and feedback. That course, you can be anywhere and take it. So we've always had that, globally, with 24-hour access. The 4-week course, since it's live, follows a 9 a.m. Central Time till about 7 p.m. Central Time schedule. So most people will be, US based, Canadian, Latin America. I was actually talking with someone who was interested from Zambia, in taking that course, and she's okay with staying up late. So it's just about that course. You have to make sure people are okay with the schedule, but you can definitely take it from anywhere with internet access, and that's the appeal. Even before COVID hit, not everyone has the finances to travel somewhere, and spend thousands and thousands of dollars. So online education, if you can make it the same quality, it makes it much more affordable and accessible. And then let's see, Ian, do you want to take the collaborate with other English schools?
I'll let you do that one. I want to speak to Rachel's question really quick here.
Okay.
I think this is relevant. She asked, with online education being here to stay, do you think that interest in TEFL will increase as it's more easily accessible, or decrease as it's offering an opportunity to travel? What will the long-term impact? What will be the long-term impact? So that's a great question, Rachel. Personally, I've had an opportunity to, I guess I don't want to say an opportunity. I've worked through two global recessions. So I started back in 2008. So the last global recession we experienced, I was working in this industry then, and this is the second. So, and as I mentioned before, one thing that I know for sure is the demand for English education will never decrease. Okay. And the reality is online education is fantastic. It's accessible. It makes language learning accessible. It makes the ability to work and earn an income as an English teacher accessible from anywhere in the world. That said, people are still willing to pay for an in-person class. And I think when the dust sort of settles, there not only will there be a demand for English teachers, people will just kind of want to have that human interaction again. And the single best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself in it, right? And so the first way to do that is, if you have the resources, move to a country in which that language is being spoken and live there, right? Most of us don't have that opportunity. So what's the second best one? Find yourself in a classroom with a teacher who that is their native language, and then you're going to immerse yourself in that. And so with the in-person class, people are always going to want to pay. The desire to travel is always going to be there. I think globally, there's probably going to be a shift to just more online employment in general. I think a lot of companies that previously were, operated in-house, they made the transition to, online employment, and that'll probably stick around for a while. Infrastructure needs to get a little bit better first, but I think it's going to be pretty consistent. When people lose their jobs, they reinvest in their education. They make themselves more employable. And with that, through most of the world, is learning English as a second language. That just makes you more employable around the world. So and maybe I'm drinking my own Kool-Aid here, but I am definitely optimistic about things. And, here's the thing about teaching English online as well. And we didn't talk about this yet. You can do that from anywhere in the world. So just because you're not necessarily working in a classroom in, let's say, Italy, you can still be living in Italy teaching English online. We've had a lot of students do that all over the world. We've had students that have lived a very transient, nomadic lifestyle and just traveled indefinitely while teaching online. They're like, hey, I don't want to be tied to a contract in one specific city or country for the next 6 or 12 months. I want to travel around. I'm just going to work online. So wherever I go, as long as I have an internet connection, I have a job. And so that appealed to a lot of people that wanted to, cross a bunch of countries off their bucket list. So again, I'm optimistic. Doug, do you want to take one of these other questions here?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that a little bit, and then I'll dive into one more of the questions. I do think, just to piggyback, that it is, really here to stay. With online education, I work with a lot of partners and companies that were only doing in-person classes and very against online education, wouldn't want to partner with us, or, thought it was less. And, there are a lot of, not great quality online courses out there that's, read a book, fill in some bubbles. Our focus has always been to be the best quality online education and follow the best practices of the major universities and, what the academics and, distant learning professionals, recommend. So that's always been our focus on quality. So, I've seen so many places close because they didn't focus on online education. So whether you like it or not, it's the future, and you got to adapt to online learning. It's just where the world is going. And there's always going to be in person, but online, is definitely here to stay. And we have seen what's unique, and I don't know if this applies to a lot of people in the industry, but we're all about training, teaching, and travel. It was all about the experience, not just about the education. And that kind of had to change. And it just happened naturally. We started getting people hearing about teaching online from our content, and we were getting single parents that wanted to take a TEFL course, not to go anywhere, but, I want a flexible job. I want to work in evenings and, when my kids are napping, essentially, like, I want to be able to work from home and not travel places. I got laid off from my job as a, video production manager. I need, something flexible. I have a low immunity. I don't want to be going around. working in different fields. I don't want to be a bartender anymore. I don't want to be a waitress anymore. So people just kind of, we kind of, still have the travel aspect, but we kind of had to shift as well with, new people coming to us.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm going to answer one of these. This is a great question. I don't know who wrote it, but Patrick typed it in there. So if it was you, Patrick, great question. A lot of us are into global exchange and experiential learning. What's the relationship between language learning and culture learning? I mean, they go really hand in hand. I mean, your native language is who you are in a lot of ways. You may not know it right off the bat, but you definitely kind of become aware of it once you are overseas. And that's one of the reasons why native English speakers are in such high demand around the world, is because what the world knows of the English language typically is American movies, American television, media, music, you name it. And so they want to have that experience, and that's what they identify American culture. Or, maybe you watch Game of Thrones or Downton Abbey, and there's some British culture in there too. So, sorry if there's any Brits attending this presentation right now, but that's what they identify the English language with. And so you're kind of putting it into context when you're there. So it's the same when you're teaching somebody English as a second language. A second language learner, and I've gone through this too. When I've learned a second language, you kind of always rely back to your native language because you identify it with something. Some people here who have grandparents who maybe English isn't their first language, and they don't call them grandma and grandpa. They always call them by the name that was used in the country they're originally from before, like Opa or whatever it may be, because that's who, even though they're speaking English to that person, they're always relying back to that because that's the culture tying into it. Okay. So I really see those things as being harmonious together. They're not mutually exclusive. Okay. And then Rachel, you asked another great question here about quick tips on how to make online education quality. Don't skimp. I think that's really a big one. People know, and especially now when people have lost their means of employment, if they're going to reinvest in their education, if they're going to reinvest in an opportunity to do something, they're going to research it. Look, if you're going to spend a half an hour on Yelp figuring out what you're having for lunch, people are going to, really pick apart your curriculum. I can't tell you. I mean, Doug can relate to this too. There's so many different providers out there. You're constantly being bombarded with questions about your curriculum, about your accreditation, about the content of the course, because people don't want to waste their money. And so when you're developing curriculum for online education, you really can't cut any corners. You have to facilitate it as best as possible. I don't think anyone's going to disagree that in-person education is probably everyone's first choice. Absolutely. But online education is a necessity. And so if you were going to take that course, what would you want the class to be structured like? What kind of type of content would you like it to be? And so you have to make it accessible. You have to make the content relevant. You have to make it engaging. And you have to make it something that they can't just watch a YouTube video and get the same quality. Because that's the thing. There's so much content out on the internet right now. I want to remodel something in my house. I'm going to YouTube that first before I pay a contractor to do it for me if I can't figure it out. So make sure that your content is really good.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I think, part of it too is not skimping. It takes good staff, and it does take money, to make it, work well. Like, that's something we've always focused on, having university professors teaching a course rather than tutors. It's better quality. It costs us more, but you're going to get a better education with people that have been trained in the field. I think, self-paced classes, it's something, and some of them do work, but I think the stats are about 50% of students don't actually complete courses when you give them 6 months to take it. But if there's set deadlines and interaction and real people and grading and feedback, that's just going to up the quality instantly. The more interaction and help you can get from people in the field, I think the better. And it's not easy to do well. So we've been lucky that we kind of had the vision, from the beginning, to do quality. So it took a long time for us to, figure this out and do research and hire really great professors with a lot of experience. And then I do see, I missed one at the top. So about collaborating, and then we may have to go and, chat in our booth for a little bit from there. But we do a lot of, different types of partnerships that we can customize if anyone's interested in, collaboration opportunities. One option, we do have a lot of international education programs, volunteer organizations, anything where, teaching and travel is involved. We have a lot of organizations that basically add on our course to different programs and package it, for people going on a teaching program or volunteer opportunity that want an actual certification and training behind it. It makes a great add-on to the program, either required or optional. Volunteer programs, paid programs, and then we do have a lot of companies just in the field that just offer it as an additional promotion that we have opportunities with. It's a little bit more hands-off, so to say, but we can provide links and, just promote each other back and forth, essentially. And then we're always looking for volunteers, that want for our, online students. We do have practicum. So we have a high need for non-native English speakers looking for free English instruction. We have thousands and thousands of teachers who are training who want to offer virtual lessons, to people looking to improve their English all around the world, and also any employment opportunities. If you own an English language school, or if you're looking to hire our teachers, they are very well trained and, very ready to get into the workforce right now and make a difference.
That's right. Okay. Well, one last slide here from us, Doug. Thank you, and stay safe.
Yeah.
Crazy time out there. So we appreciate your everyone's attention. We appreciate you, Patrick, for inviting us to do this today.
Thank you so much, folks. So right after this, you can see over on the left-hand side, the networking sign has popped up. And what that means, if you'd like to be randomly matched to somebody else who's in the environment, just pop in there and click ready, and you'll be matched with somebody else that's in there. And you can keep doing that until you don't want to talk to people individually randomly anymore, which is pretty great. And then we're going to go over to the International TEFL Academy booth over in the expo. So just click on that and look for it. Thanks so much for participating, and keep your browser tab open for the next couple of days and just come back and check on and see who's saying something somewhere, or poke around in the booth to see who's out there. So thank you everybody for participating, and thank you too for coming out here, and we'll see you over there.
My pleasure, Patrick. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.